Asharenu. Let's deal with this plus lesson. The theme of this lesson deals with morality. So we always hear the phrase, actions speak louder than words. But when it comes to spirituality, that's not necessarily the case. Because we can't measure how spiritual a person is based on what they choose to do or don't do. For example, we tend to think people are more spiritual because they may get into meditation, yoga, they may get deeper into the Bible or the Quran or whatever the case is, whatever system they choose to follow, which is all good because each system has an external body of work than an internal body of work. So it don't matter if you Christian, they got the Gnostic shit. If you Muslim, they got the Sufi shit. So it really don't matter, if you Jewish, you got the Kabbalah, you know what I mean? So you can get into real spirituality really regardless of whatever the spiritual system is. So it really don't matter what you claim, but we tend to get caught up on what we can see. See, when we look into the universal laws, which are the seven core universal laws, 2 of the 7 only deal with what you actually see, which is cause and effect and gender. The last 2 laws are the only physical laws we see. The first 5 laws are all internal. Let's go through them. The first law is the law of mentalism. And that's telling you right there that everything happens within your inner kingdom or your imagination or your mind. And again, the mind isn't the body is the body. The mind is everything, the all. So we know right there, the very first law is telling us from the jump that our reality is created from within. So we know our reality is created within. What's the second law? The second law is correspondence, which is as above, so below, as within, so without. Meaning the inner kingdom will reflect like a mirror in the outside. So the outside is really just a mirror of the inside. Now let's go to the third law, vibration. So now that we have established that everything is happening within us and the inner is being reflected outward, when we go into vibration, we see that everything is in motion. So although we may be still or asleep or whatever, we still dream, we're still moving, everything is still active. So nothing sits still, regardless of what's going on the physical level. Let's go to the next law, which is the law of polarity. Now that we know that everything moves, we have a positive charge and a negative charge. So now we know that things are just not moving. Now we have a positive charge and a negative charge. Now we have chaos. This is the thesis or the theme of chaos. We have all this energy fusing and creating life. The masculine and the feminine energies fusing together, creating life. Now let's go into the next law, which is the law of rhythm, which is the chaos or the so-called chaos has an order. Has a beginning, a middle, and an end, like a circle. So time is not linear, time is circular or holistic. So everybody who's talking about being the now, being the moment, and excuse the past and don't think about the future is thinking on a linear level. But when we think holistically, the past, present, and future are all one. They're all interconnected. So if they are all interconnected, we can access the past, the present, and the future all at once because we can do this all within our minds. We have access to do these things, and this is what alters our reality based on what we choose to tap into, because we're just truly in the moment and not thinking about anything else. You see how that can limit your spirituality, that can limit your view, especially if we want to talk about manifestation and creating your reality. You have to be futuristic and you have to reflect back on your past to see what was going on back then. So the past, present, and future has to be all infused together. You can't just be in the moment. So we just discussed these 5 laws that are internal. So when they actually do manifest on a physical level, that's when you have the cause and the effect, which we can see, okay, if you go to school, get your education, you get a good job, or you can say, well, if a criminal does crime, then he goes to jail, or whatever the case is. You can clearly see that with cause and effect, and you can clearly see the gender, which is male and female. Now, when it comes to spirituality, let's just say you have a criminal who didn't get caught. Now, you can say the average person don't want nothing to deal with them because they don't follow the law, they break the law. So although this criminal or this so-called criminal may not have gotten caught and actually have had a successful criminal run, and let's just say somebody else who went to school, got the education, and did everything so-called right, the average person would gear more towards the person that followed that direction than the criminal because they don't see themselves in the criminal. But we'd be foolish to think that that criminal-minded person couldn't benefit your spirituality in some way because he actually got away with what he did. That means he did it right. When you do it right, the end result is not going to be jail and the end result is not going to be death. Because we always hear about, well, if you get into the life of crime, then the only 2 options is death or jail. That's not necessarily the case, because obviously every criminal doesn't get caught, and also every good person or so-called good person doesn't stay good. We all know that. Like everybody who may take that path doesn't stay pure of heart. They may get into some underground activity or they may not. So it's not really for us to judge a person's spirituality based on what they do or what they don't do, or how many homeless people they choose to feed, or how many people they don't choose to feed, or how many wives they choose to have, or if they don't choose to get married at all. We can't measure spirituality based on deeds or actions. It's all internal, because whenever we associate ourselves with the outside, like that's the problem, we set ourselves up for failure. What I mean by that is, let's just say with world peace. That's a big thing nowadays. Everybody wants world peace. But world peace cannot exist in a third dimensional realm where we have cause and effect, gender, polarity. We have these dynamics going on that prevents something from being too positive or negative. So if world peace is not even possible due to universal law. This is universal law telling us that world peace is not possible. It never was world peace, and it never will be world peace. Just like nobody has the ability to stop crime, nobody has the ability to do anything of that nature. There's been so many great people who have walked this earth, but none of them have stopped crime. None of them have stopped people from being homeless, and none of them have stopped poverty, because it's not possible. And that doesn't mean there's something wrong with it or that it shouldn't be that way. It's just everything is internal. When we focus our attention on, okay, the problem is homelessness or crime or criminals or the government, when we start pointing a finger at something external of ourselves, we set ourselves up for failure, because there's no way for us to fix that, because that's not really the problem at all. Remember, if we are only a mirror of what's going on internally, if it's just a mirror being reflected, then how can anything on the outside be wrong without first looking at, okay, what are we doing internally to cause this? And this is when we get into controlling your thoughts and the concept we hold of ourselves. That's the real thing. How do you feel about yourself? What are you thinking? What do you want to do with your life? What is going on in your future? It sounds kind of selfish, but at the end of the day, we're not here to save the world. We are here to save ourselves. Because if we spend our life saving the world and never save ourselves, if we spend our lifetime being warriors and fighting on the front lines and trying to change something that has never been changed and never will change, there's no wondering why reincarnation exists and we have to do it all over again, because we really didn't do anything spiritual. We dedicated our life to, let's just say, stopping homelessness and was not successful in doing so. So of course you're going to reincarnate and have to come back and do something else because you were not successful. However, if you dedicated your life to developing a pure concept for yourself and dedicating yourself to controlling your thoughts and really being internal and working with your bigger mind, your fourth dimensional mind or your fifth dimensional mind, and doing real spiritual work internally and not worried about what's going on externally, then you move on to higher realms because you have mastered your mind. You become a mastermind. You don't become a mastermind fighting an external enemy or a ghost. The external enemy is just a ghost of what's really going on the internal. So that's just a quick plus lesson. Get at me.